selling is something that you do with somebody else. It's not something you do to people. And I think it's a big mistake in the marketplace that people think, and this is also why people think sales is gross and icky, and I don't want to be associated as a salesperson, as a business owner, is because they think it's something that you're supposed to do to people. And it's not. It's something you do with people. And when you start showing up with this with attitude, then everything gets easier.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales and marketing. Join hosts Bryn Tillman and Bill McCormick as they discuss the best tips and strategies they are teaching their clients so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Here are your hosts, Bryn Tillman and Bill McCormick.
Hey, welcome to Making Sales Social. I'm Bill McCormick.
I'm Bryn Tillman.
So, Bryn, who's joining us today?
I'm so excited. We have Nikki Rausch today, and we met through the power of networking in Clubhouse. Neil Thompson is a gentleman who frequents the rooms that I'm speaking in and said, you absolutely need to meet Nikki. You guys are so aligned. And when we chatted, there was one thing, many things that I connected with, but one thing where I said, we've got to have her on Making Sales Social, which is she has a radically different approach to sales, which is very similar to ours. She helps business owners and entrepreneurs who want to sell authentically and build relationships. Woohoo! So Nikki, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here with both of you.
Tell everyone a little bit about you and how you became this sales trainer who teaches authentic relationships.
So my background is a corporate sales rep. I was one of those like road warriors, doing the traveling like crazy and managing a very large territory and working at the manufacturer level in the technology space. And while I was doing that, I started studying neuro-linguistic programming. And if that's a new term to anybody out there, it's essentially the study of communication. And I did it with the idea that it would improve my selling skills, which it certainly did. But what it really did was improve my ability to communicate in a much more effective way. And so when I decided to start Sales Maven, which is my business, I took my combination of selling experience, selling to, large corporate, organizations, multi-million-dollar deals, and my NLP background and combined them. And now I really work with entrepreneurs, primarily women entrepreneurs, and teach them the sales conversation. I teach a 5-step approach. I call it the selling staircase. And the idea behind it is that you don't have to have a script in front of you and you don't have to, try to sell like anybody else. You get to be yourself and you understand where am I in the conversation and how do I seamlessly move it to the next step if the other person is interested in going there with me.
This is fascinating. I can't wait to dive in the selling staircase and NLP, right? NLP.
Yeah, perfect.
But first, before we get to that, there's one question we ask every guest, Nikki. What does Making Sales Social mean to you?
What it means to me is that selling is something that you do with somebody else. It's not something you do to people. And I think it's a big mistake in the marketplace that people think, and this is also why people think sales is gross and icky, and I don't want to be associated as a salesperson, as a business owner, is because they think it's something that you're supposed to do to people. And it's not. It's something you do with people. And when you start showing up with this with attitude, then everything gets easier because it truly is a social interaction.
Love that. I love that. And those are like mic drop moments, like quotable moments, right? Sales is something we do with, not to. I love it.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to our philosophy, that prospect isn't a number in your CRM. They're not a dollar amount in your quota. They're actually a real person. Mm-hmm. So I love that. So I don't know, Bryn, I think we need to unpack the staircase. I think we need to climb higher and higher. So let's talk about the staircase a little bit.
So it's really focused around the sales conversation. And there are 5 steps in the selling staircase. The foundation that this staircase resides on is rapport. So you'll often hear me say it's relationship first, rapport always. So you have to have rapport with the person you're in conversation with. And step one is the introduction. This is when you're meeting them for the first time, or maybe they're being introduced to your work in some way. It could be through LinkedIn, could be through YouTube, it could be that they're listening to your podcast, or they're visiting your website. And the idea in step one in the introduction is to make a powerful first impression, to make somebody go like, I'm interested. I'm willing to give you my attention for a few more seconds to check you out. So that's step one. Step two,
wait, before we go to step two,
Yeah.
how do you do that? How do you use the LinkedIn profile or the website to gain those insights to make that powerful?
Well, one of the ways that I would do that is I would think about, especially with your website and also with your LinkedIn too, is it can't be all about you. It needs to actually be about the reader. So one of the things I teach is you got to get rid of all these I statements, like I do this, I help these people, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, let's talk about, this is for you when blah, 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 whatever it is that you're talking about on your website. Or you could say, you'll often hear me say this, clients hire me to learn how to sell. That's not me saying, oh, I help clients learn how to sell. I'm making about the client. It's what they do. It's not what I do.
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually say all content, including your profile, needs to do 5 things. It needs to resonate with your targeted audience, so they know immediately you helped me. The second thing it needs to do is create curiosity, because you can lose them on the website or on the LinkedIn profile like that, or content. If you don't create a curiosity, they don't lean in, and we need them to lean in.
That's right.
The third thing is teach them something new, right? So what did they learn today that they didn't know yesterday or before they got here? And that's even on your LinkedIn profile. What the fourth is, what you taught them needs to get them thinking a little differently than they did before. And then fifth, it needs to create a compelling moment. So we move them from lurkers to engagers.
I love that.
Yeah. So I just thought that just fit right in with staircase step number 1.
Yeah, for sure. I think we have a lot of alignment here, because for me, step number 2 is creating curiosity. And so I feel like we're right in alignment. And this I often say is the most missed step in the selling staircase. People don't think about, are you creating curiosity? And I teach creating curiosity as it's the difference between how you call a dog and how you call a cat. So I know that sounds a little crazy. So if you give me just a second.
Not anyone who both owns both cats and dogs totally gets that. But you may need to unpack that for some non-dog and non-cat people.
Okay. All right. So for the dog owners, typically if you want to get your dog's attention, you do this like kind of a high pitched, kind of like a lot of energy, like, come here, boy, come here. Let's do something fun. You want a treat? And dogs really respond to that kind of energy. But unfortunately, a lot of times in a sales conversation with somebody, we are so excited to talk to a new client that we end up having this dog calling energy, which for the person on the receiving end of that, it's like, oh, it's too much. Like, I'm not a dog. I don't respond to that type of energy. So the flip side of it is you think about how you call a cat, and you do this little thing where you go, here, kitty, kitty, here, kitty, kitty. Now what happens? Your cats oftentimes won't even come to you for that, by the way. They'll lean in, which I think you said, Bryn, like we're just wanting them to lean in. We want their attention long enough for them to go, tell me more, or ask a question, right? So that's what creating curiosity is about. And I often teach that it's the way you answer really simple questions oftentimes can open the door to creating curiosity. So for instance, if you said to me right now, like, hey, Nikki, what have you been up to lately? Like I could say, oh, not much, but that doesn't create any curiosity, right? Or I could say, oh, I'm just getting ready to launch my last masterclass of the year. And then somebody could go, maybe if you were interested, you might say, what are you teaching a class on? Or what's going on with that? And then I could talk a little bit more about that. It gives me a little opening. And then what happens oftentimes when you create curiosity is people will start to give you buying signals. And when you get buying signals, that's when you invite them to step 3, which is the discovery process. And I know I've heard you guys talk about discovery on your podcast, that how important it is. The idea, sorry.
I just want to stay on step 2 just for one moment, because I love that. I think one of the reasons that salespeople don't like to create curiosity is because we lose control then. We have a sales process, and we're going to do our step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and we know it. And the problem with that is that the buyer has a buying process. And
Yep.
as salespeople, I don't think we like to lose control. And the curiosity causes us to lose control. I think about my cat. So I have one cat that answers like a dog. When I call him, he comes. It's great.
Awesome.
But there's another cat that just is a totally different story. So, you scratch, like, I don't know if you can hear that on my microphone, but, I scratch on something and it kind of gets them, okay, I might want to go after that. And that luring, enticing, I guess, really is the thing, is that we have to entice them along. So I just wanted to say that before we move on to discovery, which is a great thing to talk.
Looking to up your LinkedIn game? The Social Sales Link team has you covered with our LinkedIn Sales Accelerator, a guided social selling program that includes training, coaching, and so much more. Visit socialsaleslink.com/in for more details. Again, that's socialsaleslink.com/in.
I want to pull what you said, though.
Okay.
Both of you were saying, because I think that's really important. When we're not creating curiosity and we're following our own agenda, we don't make them matter. It's all about me and my agenda.
Right.
When you create curiosity, what I'm learning from Nikki here is that that's what gets them to lean in, because they matter, right? So I think that's the kind of differentiator there that at least I'm picking up on.
Yeah, the idea is that we want them to lean in. We want them to have questions, because from their questions, oftentimes that gives us an indication of where to go next, right? Because you think about all that you guys do and all the experience that you have. If somebody came up and said, like, hey, Bren, tell me everything you know about sales, like, you could talk for probably days, right? Like, because you know so much about it. But maybe all they wanted to know when they say, tell me what you know about sales, is tell me how to hire you, right? So you don't want to just talk about sales. You want to talk about ways to work with you. So we have to give them opportunity to ask questions, because it lets us know where to go next.
I love that. I think that's so important. And discovery also helps them too, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing that like, discovery is not just for me to find out what's going on in their environment. If we do a really good discovery, they're having aha moments about their environment that they didn't even recognize.
It goes to what you said in the beginning. We do sales with someone, not to someone. And Jeff Bajorek said it. We don't do discovery on a client or a prospect. We do discovery with them, to Bryn's point, so that they discover some stuff also.
Yeah. I always say all roads in the discovery, in your questions, all roads should lead to either hiring you or helping them self-select this isn't the right thing for them, right? Because not everybody you talk to is a client. So we're planting seeds by asking questions that lets them go, ooh. So for instance, in my discovery process, you better believe one of the questions that I ask is, how proficient are you at creating curiosity when you're talking about your business? Guess why? Because I teach that. So of course I'm going to ask that question, because it also plants a seed in their mind of like, oh, maybe Nikki knows how to do something that I haven't learned how to do yet. So I want to stay in this conversation. I want to find out, how can I learn how to create curiosity?
In some ways, so one of the things that we teach is that we want to lead to our solution, not with our solution.
Yes.
And so I think that perfectly aligns with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of, I teach this too, is like, do not sell during discovery. This is not you demonstrating your expertise. This is not you giving a little nugget to somebody. You're like, what's going to solve your problem is this. Like, I think that's a huge mistake in the selling process, is to demonstrate your expertise, because that I'll often say, it's kind of like, think about all the resources, everything everything that you can bring to a client's life that will help them get whatever it is, that they need or want or solve their problem. They don't know all that you know. It's like giving them a grain of sand, because to you, it's just a little thing. You're like, oh, I'm just going to give you this little thing, this little taste. But they don't know that behind you is all your resources. It's like a big, beautiful beach. And they think when you give them that little grain of sand that it is the beach. And now they don't need to hire you. And frankly, they miss out on all that you can help them and all that you can bring to solve the problem, meet the need, and really make a difference and an impact when they work with you.
So I have a question to that.
Okay.
Without, I'm not going to push back on kind of but my question to you is, we need to earn the right to get the business.
Yes.
Right. And so if we are not sharing nuggets, where are we earning the right in the sales process?
You're earning the right by planting the seeds about the ways, like this idea of like, what are the things that you can teach? And do they get an idea of like, this is something I'd like to know more about? So you can give as much what as you want, but if you give the how, they often think then they don't need to hire you. So you can give as much what. I teach creating curiosity, storytelling is a big part. And, is that something that's important to you? And how confident are you when you're telling stories in earning somebody's business, right? Because I'm not telling them how to tell stories. I'm not teaching them how to break it down. Right. That is something that they get when they hire me. That is something that I teach, right? So the idea behind this is there's lots of ways for people to get like truly little nuggets from you. Like you guys have this amazing podcast and you share all kinds of stuff out into the marketplace. Those are ways for them to get little grains of sand, but they're not specific to their need. Because when you start talking specific to their need and specific to their application, oftentimes they won't hire you because they think, well, I just got the secret insight here that I needed from Bryn or from Bill. So I probably need to go implement and then maybe come back and hire them later. But they can't really go and implement because you just gave them this tiny little thing and they need you to help them walk them through it or give them a little bit more context or give them an opportunity to ask more questions to get some more clarity. That's what I mean by that.
Interesting. So thank you for that. So step number 3.
So that's the discovery.
Right.
Yeah. And then so step number 4 is when you actually start doing the selling. This is the proposal step. And proposal can be a formal proposal, but it may just be in a conversation. So I always suggest that the way you move from step to step is you ask permission. So I never go into sales mode with somebody. I always say, based on what you've shared, I have some ideas of ways we might work together. Would you be interested in hearing more about those? So I'm going to, okay, good. So I'm going to ask their permission, and then I'm going to lay out the way to work with me based on what they have shared. And I'm going to stand in my place of credibility and authority, and I'm going to recommend what I know they need in this moment. I'm not going to say there are 18 ways to work with me. I'm going to say, I'll give up to 3, but usually I'll pick 1. I'll say, based on what you've shared, my suggestion is that we work together in a multi-strategy session type opportunity where we can work on these specific things. Here's, based on what you have shared with me, these are the things that we would cover in those sessions. And then I'm going to move to step 5. I'm going to issue that close language. And close language is that very direct yes or no question. It's essentially saying to somebody without saying to them, do you want to hire me? Yes or no? So I'm going to say, is that something you'd like to move forward with? And then I'm going to zip it and wait and let them respond.
It's interesting. That's something that we had to learn the hard way is we gave options and recognized option. They don't want options. They want to be told.
It confused them, really.
Yeah.
Basically.
It can be overwhelming. And then they go into decision fatigue. Like, I don't know what to do, but you're the expert. So stand in your place of expertise, recommend what you know they need. And if they have a question or an objection, or if they say that's a little out of my price range, then you could bring up something else. You can move them a step down if that makes sense. But if you just give them like, here's 18 ways to work with me and go look at my website and here's all the packages I have, they go into overwhelm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So the base is rapport.
Yep.
Step number 1.
Introduction.
Step number 2.
Curiosity.
Step number 3.
Discovery.
Step number 4.
Proposal.
Step number 5.
Close.
Got it. I was mixing some together and they were all, so now I'm glad that we've got.
I did it really fast.
And 4 and 5 kind of went right together. So let's talk for a moment about the close. So you do that and you zip your lip. And here's one of the things we know. I don't know I don't know, there's like 8,952 decision makers for every business, every decision that's made nowadays. I'm being really sarcastic. I'm being really sarcastic, but I'm not. I mean, that's just, there's so many. And so it's okay. I have to get the team's input, or I need to take this to my boss, or so what do you do at that point?
So what I do is I always think it's important to move the conversation along and get to the next step. So I want to have the next step scheduled before I end that conversation. So I would say to somebody who says, I have to take this to my boss, I would say, now, is there any additional information that would be useful for you to have in front of you when you have that conversation? And when do you think you'll have that conversation with him or her? And then I'm going to say, let's schedule a circle back call now on our calendars. That way I can answer any additional questions that come up during that conversation for you and your boss. And then we'll talk about next steps for working together. Like, do you have your calendar available now? And I'm going to schedule that next step because I want to make sure. I actually don't believe in chasing clients. I would say if you chase clients, you're turning everybody into a toddler. Just like if you say to a toddler, like, I'm going to chase you. They don't even know what the game is and they're off and running.
Yeah.
And if you act like, well, I'll just follow up with you next week, or I'll just call you sometime soon. Well, they're not going to answer when you call them. But if you have an appointment scheduled on their calendar, they're going to either have ensured that they had the conversation with the boss, or they're going to say, this isn't really for me, so I'm just going to cancel this meeting with you. Great. Save you a bunch of time and effort and energy talking to somebody who's not an ideal client. Or they're going to get on the call with you and say, I'm struggling with how to bring this up and I need some help, or I need some additional information. But that keeps the sales conversation moving forward till we get to the place where we actually either decide not to work together or we exchange dollars for service or product or whatever it is that you're selling.
Love that.
Yeah. And either one of those is a win because, because you found out and you discovered, and that's one of the things that I've done is I've focused more on before I end any call. It's like, okay, where do you think we should go from here? And let's schedule a follow-up. And it's been a game changer. It really has. And it's kept things either moving along or somebody saying, hey, listen, it's just not going to work. So I love that. And I can't believe we are already out of time. We really didn't even get to talk about neuro-linguistic programming. So I'm thinking that we're going to have to do another session with you for sure.
Happy to.
So listen, before we wrap up, Nikki, thank you so much. Tell everyone how they can stay in contact with you and connect with you.
Well, I'm going to wrap it around a gift for your listener, if that's okay, your listeners.
Of course.
We love gifts.
Okay, good. So this is an ebook called Closing the Sale, and it kind of really talks through some of that language of step 3, 4, and 5 in the selling staircase. You can get that by going to my website, yoursalesmaven.com, and then /social. So this is for your podcast listeners, Your Sales Maven, and Maven is MAVEN.com/social.
Great. So make sure you go check out salesmaven.com/social to download that. I know as soon as we get off, I'm going to go do that.
I am too.
And so Nikki, thank you so much for being here. Listeners, thank you for spending your time with us. And don't forget, whatever you do when you're out and about this week, don't forget to make your sales social. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening, and join us again for more special guest instructors bringing you marketing, sales training, and social selling strategies that will set you apart. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest episodes from the Making Sales Social podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.